my sensing some nerves. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And it's kind of like that Louis Mal film. My name is Shahir Dowd.
And don't freak out, but there's a huge spider on your back. I'm Jamie Walsh.
And this is the only podcast about movies, specifically the film The Drama.
What was that?
The Drama.
What is that?
It's The Drama.
I don't know. I don't like it. No, redo it. Do it again.
New
The
shirt.
Drama.
Oh my God, it's even worse. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. I'm glad to see both of you in the same room together.
Look at us. Look at us go.
We live here.
We live here all the time.
Now, I kind of socially engineered this episode of the podcast because I really wanted to do this film.
Sure.
I didn't know a lot about it other than Robert Pattinson and Zendaya. But I knew you two are getting married.
That's right. You're in the wedding.
What? and I was like, you know what? I think if the stars are aligned, this would be a great episode because my understanding of the film was that it is to do with the actual process of organizing and coordinating a wedding. That's what I knew about the film.
You were gravely misinformed.
I think
There's a little bit.
Yeah,
It's like what is it? It starts like 2 weeks out.
Yeah, something
what they
along
have?
those
Yeah.
lines. Yeah. And so I figured that this would be a perfect movie for you two to get into.
Because what, we're 9 weeks out?
Oh God.
Yeah.
Or, as I was just about to get to, the worst movie for you guys to do because it may remind you of the things that you have to organize for the upcoming nuptials.
Yeah, and as someone who overthinks everything, I have to say I deeply related at some points to the part of Robert Pattinson's character in this movie where he just completely spirals about small things. And so I was a little nervous to go in and watch a movie about
The spiraling?
wedding anxiety
Yeah.
and things that go wrong at the last minute as we're like starting to tie off the ends of the wedding that we're planning.
Well, I kind of wanted to get into a little bit, if you don't mind me asking. And we'll talk about this. And then we also have a couple of emails that we'll get to as well. Write us in at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com.
You can tell this is Shahir's episode because I feel like I'm being interviewed on my own show. I'm fine with it.
Well,
I'm here.
Feel free to chime in at any moment.
Yeah, okay. And this isn't live, right? We can cut everything out?
We can cut everything out. Yeah. Including your parts.
Great.
But I was curious
Mike's not
how
gonna
it's going, both of you, like in terms of like the wedding prep.
It's going right now really great.
That's not all the time.
Yeah, there was one thing that we had to do that was awful and made us both want to die.
Ooh,
but it's done.
Spill.
It's not even a spill. We picked this venue that is it used to be a summer camp.
Okay.
And it's been rebuilt into like a little seaside resort.
Mhm.
And so there's hotel rooms, but there are also cabins and lodges. And because of the workup of the space, when we booked it, they were like, great, we're so happy that you're with us.
Yeah.
Just an FYI, you are in charge of lodging. And we were like, what does that mean? And they were like, you place everybody.
Okay.
And that was the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my whole life.
It was like, what if table settings, which is a complicated thing at a wedding regardless, but also dealing with the cost of everyone's lodging.
Right.
And
just comfort.
And placement.
Preference.
And again, don't get us wrong. The venue that we have is lovely and I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to you seeing it here.
Yeah.
But the structure of the way that there are only so many of each type of room, and then also the different structure of family units or couples or single people coming to the wedding. Like that was a Jenga tower. I don't know. I think we showed you at one point. I have a map that I printed out on a big board that I was moving names around. We were moving stuff around for like 2 months.
And
3
I
months.
want to be clear, when we finished, I was like, we've done such a good job.
Yeah.
We did not do a good job.
Really? What are the complications?
There were like mismatches in rooms. There were places that I thought were roomier than they were. And then actually one of the guests was like, I don't think that you should fit all of us into this little cabin. And I was like, what do you mean? It's going to be fun. Oh God, you're all on couches. Like, yeah, things just went awry in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to be out of those woods.
At this point, it seems to be good. The thing that the drama around what was happening there was it basically took a lot of energy out from the actual planning of the day. So we're actually, weirdly enough, doing a lot of we have our vendors, we have all that stuff, but like the structure of the day, we actually kind of just started building, or the minutia of that structure, maybe even last weekend.
Yeah. I think we're a little behind because we spent so much time doing the housing,
lodging.
On the drama.
Well,
the drama was lodging.
The thing I wanted to kind of get to was also, in many ways, the planning of the wedding is the first test of the couple. And how do you guys feel going through it now?
Overall, fine. I mean, we fight, but we fight a lot about everything anyway.
Yeah, I think we're okay. I think it's going well. And I did mention to someone that the lodging thing had happened, that it was tense. And she at work, she said, my husband and I never fought more in our lives than over the seating chart. And I was
Really?
like, good God.
Well, you know what's interesting?
So we're past this really awful hard part, and we're still together. So
Yeah.
And I will say, I don't think we've argued more than we usually do with the wedding. I think we argued this amount about whatever the thing is going on.
yeah, Shahir, you might have noticed we're punchy overthinkers, and
Right.
so I would say we have our small tiffs.
Small to medium to large ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
have
mostly
fun
they're
here.
fine. Yeah, mostly they're about stupid things.
Yeah.
The problem that I have is that Matt can like cool down a lot faster than I can, so I usually have to go like stand in a corner and fold towels for a while to like get out my head into a new.
I can pivot in like 30 seconds.
It's infuriating.
I'm the opposite, which is that in my relationship, I take days to kind of like let go of something, and it takes me a while to like really, like we'll move on to a conversation about dinner, and I'll be like, we can't talk about dinner until we figure out the thing we were just arguing about.
We're in an emergency situation until this is resolved.
Yeah,
I totally,
exactly.
I agree. She's
Nah,
the
it's
same way.
all groovy.
It's all groovy. Are you going to start saying groovy and drama in a funny way now?
Groovy.
I assure you, listeners, we will be getting to the movie, but I
Yes,
was also
sorry.
Which
curious.
movie, Sheer?
The drama.
The drama.
but the
You
question-
almost got it.
The question I kind of also just wanted to ask you guys is, are you looking forward to being married?
I think that we've been living together for like 2 years, and we've
Right.
been together for like 9 years. So I think it's going to be pretty similar.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm looking forward to
Overall-
being married.
Yeah, I think the cool part is we went last weekend. We went band shopping.
Okay. Yeah.
Not for bands to play at the wedding, but like the wedding band.
I literally
Oh, wait,
just
what?
I
Ring.
was
Ring.
physically
Oh, okay,
there, and
okay.
I made
Yeah,
that
no,
exact
sorry.
mistake. I was like, we have a DJ. What
because
are you talking about?
obviously I got Jamie an engagement ring, but
Yeah.
we were looking at what the rings we were doing, and like I had a very good time doing sort of that little like together task.
Yeah.
And it sort of put into perspective how much like, even despite all the stressors of the nightmares of planning a wedding, when we get to do like the little things together, which we have gotten to do for a while, but this is sort of like we're throwing this joint event to share our love with the world, Jamie.
Yeah.
It's really, really nice to sort of just feel completely at ease. Like, I don't know if you even clocked it, but I was just sort of like vibing in
Yeah, you
that
had a
store.
really nice time,
and it was just
yeah.
like, this is cool.
Matt likes a jewelry store, I've learned.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I don't like wearing jewelry, but I like a jewelry store.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
The glass cases, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't get enough of them.
I have a great fun story, which I'll share with you guys offline about our wedding rings, which involved late night couriers and rings having to be forged within an hour of our ceremony.
Oh, yes.
Because of
please
missed
tell
deliveries
us.
and things like that. So I will share that with you at some point, not to add to the anxiety.
No.
But before we, but so at any rate, I'm glad we got to talk. We're going to get to talk about this particular movie because hopefully it will just fuel further anxiety for you, which I just enjoy watching. But
Buckle up.
I also wanted to get to some emails. We've got an email here from Jack who writes us in, hey man, Shahir, longtime listener, first time writer. First, Matt, I just wanted to say that your sit on the most recent season of Abolish Everything was by far the favorite of the season, and that you were absolutely robbed of what would have been the most deserved win of the series.
That's very
Seriously
sweet.
had me rolling on the floor laughing. Second, I wanted to write in about Project Hail Mary. As a self-certified sci-fi lover and someone with an obsession for good practical filmmaking, this movie scratched an itch for me that really hasn't been touched since Interstellar came out. What I was not expecting was to be so pulled in by the story and fall so in love with a rock.
Yeah.
I loved how the story unfolded, carefully revealing plot details as it went, pulling us further and further into the story. I had not read the book prior to watching the movie and had really no idea how it was going to end. To say I was on the edge of my seat would be an understatement. My opinion is, and for listeners, we kind of had a conversation about the longevity of Project Hail Mary.
Sure.
And so Jack goes on to write here, my opinion is that Project Hail Mary will have a staying power to make it to Oscar season and be nominated for the following: Best Actor in a Leading Role, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Visual Effects, Best Sound, Best Picture. Out of those, I expect it to win Best Adapted Screenplay, but come up short everywhere else. I would love for it to win more, though it has quickly become, one of my favorite films, and I think it deserves all the love. Until next time, fist my bump and 2 thumbs down, Jack.
Hey, Jack, thank you for the kind words. Also, feel free to use, I forget what our promo code is, but the promo code for Nebula, if you want to see that abolish everything, it is in the description of this episode. So thank you, Jack, for teeing up that little product placement there. I'm very proud of that set, too, so I'm glad that
I've seen the set, like the rehearsals of the set.
Yes.
Like the dinner rehearsals for a wedding.
Yeah, there you go. Which you'll also be at.
Yeah.
But I think that's a solid read on Project Hail Mary. I think it does have staying power and not in a, it's funny. I don't think it's going to stay in the conversation, but I think when people look back at it, and it will be inevitably talked about at some point, the amount of joy that I think people had from that movie will like show up again. Right. I think it will erupt once more.
I'm on the opposite side of this argument, but I'm happy to be proved wrong. And one thing I will say is that movie has been doing well in follow-up box office weekends. So, so it's been continuing to stay there. I just don't see it in terms of going to the Oscars all that way. But again, I'm happy to be proved wrong about us, and let's revisit this conversation in March when we inevitably get to our best of 2026 episode.
That's right, in May of next year.
Yeah.
I will say, dummy me just realized the wordplay that is involved in a lot of the stuff with Project Hail Mary. So that the project obviously is called Hail Mary.
Yeah.
And the man's last name in it is Grace.
Yeah. Hail Mary
full of grace, because he's in the ship, and I was like, oh, ha.
You're a wise man, Andy Weir. One more email here, which will tee up our conversation about the drama. This is from Danny, who writes us in. And I really love this email, by the way, because if for listeners who don't know, Danny has written us in a few times, but I feel like Danny and his wife got married during the course of our show at some point. And so I really enjoyed just hearing about how their relationship is going. And this was in kind of directly pertaining to that. Hi, I'm writing to recommend a movie for you all to watch and discuss. My wife and I just saw The Drama on Saturday morning and have been talking about it ever since. I think there'd be a lot to discuss in 2 regards. The film itself, which is a dark rom-comish sort of movie crossed with a morality play, has really kept me thinking these past few days as it grows more and more on me. It's very funny and also takes questions that had me very intrigued. Also, the marketing campaign for the movie, which keeps the basic premise of the movie completely in the dark. It opened the past weekend to $14.4 million, A24's 3rd biggest opening weekend after Civil War and Mighty Supreme. I'm trying to keep everything vague here when I say I firmly believe if they had been upfront about the premise of the film, it would not have made that much money. While I also believe the movie is a crowd pleaser, that may still bother some people on the actual nature of the plot. I'd love to hear you all discuss it. I think this is a movie that we talked about for quite some time this year and probably be in the future whenever people discuss Zendaya's career. Love the show as always and would love to hear you all talk the drama.
The drama.
The drama. Right. That's Bugs Bunny. There you go. Matt, could you tell us what the drama is about?
I sure can. The Internet Movie Database lets us know that the drama is, quote, a happy engaged couple is put to the test when an unexpected turn sends their wedding week off the rails.
And let me guess, it's not the DJ.
No, it's probably partially the DJ.
Yeah, the DJ deserves some talking points in this movie.
Yeah, agreed.
You want to go first?
No, you go first.
Okay. I, again, saw, I knew nothing about the movie. And I kind of feel like there's this thing that's happening, which is like, there's a little bit of deja vu with this year so far, which is that Project Hail Mary kind of came out at the same time as Mickey 17 did the year before. Yep. And this has come out at the same time as The Materialist last year as well. And so it kind of feels like in some way we're repeating some of the same conversations in a way.
Which isn't Mickey 17 about like a repeated clone?
Yeah, and here we are. Wow. I just sent the clone over, by the way. The real me sitting at home watching Mission Impossible right now.
Wow, which one?
Fallout. And I was watching Fallout right before this because my son is on vacation this week. Just as a little side note. My son is on vacation this week and he has started watching the Mission Impossibles and he wants to get through them all before the week is over. So we have done... He literally finished... Rogue Nation and then fired up Fallout as I was walking out the door.
I'll be curious what his favorite one is.
It's so funny. His favorite one is the last one he just watched.
That's a very child thing to be, but I'm curious when it's done. Because I bet you Final Reckoning, whatever, will not be his favorite.
I've not said anything about those, but it was great to watch Mission Impossible 3 again as the one that I just clearly think is the best. Anyway, so I didn't know much about the drama going in. I know we had done Christopher Borgly's previous film, Dream Scenario, which ended up on my top 10 list that time around. He is a Norwegian filmmaker. Just a little quick side note before we get into this. Some of the drama around this film. There has been an unearthed essay that Christopher Borgly wrote a few years ago, about 10 to 15 years ago, which describes a relationship that he had while he was 27 with a 16-year-old girl. You can go to the Hollywood Reporter if you want to kind of see details of it. I've just kind of found out that detail about this essay in the last hour or so. So I feel like I don't have too much to say about it, but I know it is a factor that is going around.
Sure.
As people discuss the movie, and rightly so, as it should be. We've always talked about this, and you go back to our art versus artist episode, that context matters, and if the context prevents you from watching the movie or doesn't enable you to enjoy this movie, then that is totally a fair read on that.
Yeah.
At any rate, so I wanted to put that up front. I sat down in the movie theater not really knowing a lot about the movie. Freaking loved it. I absolutely love it. This is like my sense of humor. It is my kind of comedy in terms of like the things that I think are intriguing. It is an absolute provocation of an idea at the center of this movie that I think is like ripe for an audience to kind of really squirm at. I found the audience was really squirming during this movie in a way that I kind of really enjoyed. I think that it's so sharply made. Christopher Borgly, the two things I really want to talk about in terms of this film, one is the editing, which I would say this is one of the most masterfully edited films I'd seen in a long time. In terms of like just using the footage that they actually had in really interesting ways. The movie jumps through time quite a bit, and then also uses imaginary flash forwards and then what could be perceived as imaginary flashbacks in really interesting ways. So I loved all of that. I was really curious after the movie to kind of see what the marketing campaign for this movie was.
Oh, because you didn't pay attention.
I didn't pay attention.
Right. Interesting.
All I'd seen was one poster as I walked into the theater
at
on
Lincoln?
the night.
Oh, no.
No, at the Regal Kaufman here. And it was of those two kind of like on a white backdrop, kind of beat up faces. It reminded me of the Steve Carell, Tina Fey film Date Night.
Yeah. That particular shot is 1,000%
and I was like, oh, I think what they're selling here is like funny romp about wedding mishaps, kind of light, fluffy, airy kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that is not what the movie is at all. The movie is pretty incisive about current politics, but it's also very playful. Reminded me a lot of Ruben Östlund's film Triangle of Sadness, which we've also done on this podcast. And I, again, just as a person who loves to kind of see movies push the audience beyond their comfort zone, this was a movie that I felt like really pushed the audience beyond their comfort zone. Particularly, I think there is something about a Norwegian filmmaker, a European filmmaker with a sort of kind of a European sensibilities, talking about something that is fairly provocative in American culture. And I found that it was really clever, very playful, and in a way, I enjoyed the cavalierness with which it discussed its primary subject. I'm being very vague about what that is. We can talk about that once we've got your takes on the movie as well.
Federal employees keep our country going, and GEHA is proud to keep them going with health plans exclusively for them. We were started by postal employees in 1937, and today we offer all federal employees a network of 1.7 million providers and a health plan for every stage of life. That's why we've been trusted by millions of federal employees and retirees across the country since 1937. GEHA. Find your federal health plan at GEHA.com.
But fair to say, I loved the film. I flat out just had such a great time watching this and found that it was like, I felt like the thing I was worried about was that the audience that might have come in for this movie might have been expecting a Zendaya, Robert Pattinson like romantic romp. And I was like, I think I love this movie. I'm not sure what everybody else thought about this movie. So I'm really curious how it played. But yeah, I flat out loved it.
All right. Jamie, would you like to continue?
Oh, sure. Shahir, so first of all, I as I was watching the first act of the movie, I thought to myself, geez, I wish I did the Shahir thing and didn't watch previews.
Right.
This isn't a criticism of the movie, but because like what sets off the drama.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know what that was.
I was like, I felt myself kind of mentally rushing.
Yeah,
like,
waiting for it to
like,
happen.
when are we going to
Yeah.
get to that part? When are we going to get to that part? And I wish that I didn't have that
Yeah.
feeling because, other things that you are totally right about. It's very squirmy audience.
Yeah, yeah.
Very fun to have an audience around you just being upset
Yeah.
with things that are happening
Yeah.
or laughing. You know, dark comedy is, I think, maybe the right descriptor for this movie because, yeah, it deals with sort of intense subject matter in a way that is occasionally flippant.
Yeah.
The editing is great. I really liked the way the movie jumps through like memory and time and also fantasy, and sort of like the interiors of at least one character's mind.
Yeah.
I had a nice time.
Yeah.
I don't think that this is a good one. Okay, that's maybe too simplistic a sentence.
Okay.
I think that there's a lot of good technical work, and I just think that it's hard to talk about it without spoiling things, but I think there are some issues with the actions of people and arcs of people and choices of people that left me feeling like it wasn't real. Like it chose pithiness over actual substance sometimes in a way that right after we saw it, I was a little frustrated. And now that I've like sat with it for a bit, I'm like, I had fun. But I think I struggled with the human stories because they weren't substantial.
I think their apartment made it seem like it was fantasy.
Oh, man, that
we were commenting on that.
apartment.
But everyone who lives in New York or any major city would be like, fuck
Yeah.
you.
Also, this is very specifically Cambridge and not like Greater Boston.
Yeah.
The actors are great. People are doing a lot of good work. Again, like really well edited, funny, enjoyable.
Yeah.
But I frequently found myself thinking, well, who's making this choice? Why is this happening? And when I would pick on something that I liked, I would feel like it was undone later by the actions or dialogue that happened. And so I kind of kept being like, well, then does this mean anything?
Right.
Yeah, I'll say more when we can talk about other stuff.
Sure.
Matthew, what did you think?
Well, I kind of left the theater. Well, actually, we've talked about the advertising campaign, Sheer not having seen it, Jamie regretting seeing it. I actually really appreciated the ad campaign. I think it rode a really remarkable line, and the only way the only reason I thought that the titular drama was going to be something fucking like very unnerving in various ways and ways to make the audience sort of squirm was that it was an A24 movie.
Right.
Like the way that they marketed this otherwise, it could have just been a romantic comedy in a weird way, especially the Beyond trailer, like the stuff that they were doing. They put out wedding announcements. They did a photo shoot that looked like a announcement photo shoot. Like they made it all very wedding based. Zendaya went to, I forget what city this was in, but she was witnesses. She was a witness at like multiple weddings at courthouses. Like they were doing a lot of like, the wedding's the point. The wedding's the point.
Yeah.
And I would argue that the wedding is not the point.
The wedding was not the point.
So
to such a degree where they skipped it.
Well, they come back to it.
They know we don't see them get married.
No,
they're like,
it's very briefly,
all right, oh geez, we're in a pickle, and then it's like flash forward to the reception.
Yeah.
Where the real money is made.
Drove me crazy.
Yeah.
But it's actually there's a minor thing too, because there's a lot of stuff about Robert Pattinson's character writing and adjusting his vows, and then we don't see the vows.
Yeah.
So like,
the speech. They say speech a lot.
Oh yeah,
And
he gives a speech.
He gives the speech.
I was always coding that as vows, but even though it was a speech, you're right. I take that back. But so I very much think that the marketing for this movie did a phenomenal job, and I think got more butts in seats than if they had revealed it. To be honest,
just to chime in there, I one of the things I want to talk about in a little bit is I think how difficult a job the marketing team would have had for this particular.
Oh my God,
yeah,
and we'll get to that in a second. I think that I left the film again, I had fun. I liked the humor. I think, again, we're all talking about the editing. I think the way that they interweave what is reality in this movie and what is sort of like the characters thinking things could be happening or possible futures or past events or things like that is a really effective tool. I also think that it did a thing where in the last third or whatever, when they're at the wedding, I didn't know if they were actually at the wedding for a really long time because it had jumped around so much, which at first I was like, ooh, this is neat. And then I found myself getting frustrated as the things got like further along because I wasn't sure because the movie had trained me not to be sure.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Which is fine. Yeah. Again, here's what I'll say. I think over the course of time and thinking about it, I actually liked it. I like it more than I did when I left the theater. Mm-hmm. I think what I want to celebrate about this movie is not so much like that I think it's wonderful. It's that I think it is one of the most effectively, and this is going to sound like a detriment, and I don't think it is, sloppy films that I've seen in a long time. And I think that the sloppiness that I'll get into as we can start talking about spoilers, it's not a technical sloppiness. It's a human sloppiness. It's this story is based around characters that have done, thought about doing, or will continue to do questionable things. And I think that I think every character serves a purpose to show a type of human sloppiness. And when you throw that all together with the type of this film, I do, like, I remember leaving and I'd be like, that just feels like rough around the edges, but not in a technical way.
Right.
It's something I've sort of unearthed, and I feel like I'm talking around the point now, but we've sort of said our initial things. I do really like this movie, but I also would totally understand someone fucking hating this movie.
I can see people getting upset by this movie just by the nature of what it is trying to do.
I might even say beyond the subject matter. Like, I think somewhat of the structure, and Jamie, to your complaints too, I 1,000% agree. None of these, even though they're putting on great performances, none feel like real characters to me. They're archetypes, which is fine. I've talked about this before. I'm cool with that.
I'll push back a little, actually. And
that was your point.
Well, no. I think that Zendaya has a real character in here.
Yeah.
But the movie is 70% in the brain of Robert Pattinson's Charlie.
Yeah.
Charlie and Emma, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a goddamn mess. Now, maybe my comment on like real characters is a little too broad, because I do think that he is a kind of person. He's the drama. His problem is that she says the thing and he can't get over it or get past it, and his anxiety spirals him into a bad place about his partner. I actually I think that there are a few ways of reading it that would, with small changes, maybe save the movie, because it's more his journey of not being able to cope. But I don't know that they do that. That's the frustration for me, is when it ended, I was like, so did anyone learn anything?
So I think to that point, in many ways, this kind of reminded me a little bit of Eyes Wide Shut, in respect of like the movie is getting to an idea towards the back end of it about essentially what the nature of what a marriage requires of people. And I think I will 100% agree that the final scene of the movie, which involves a reconciliation of these two characters, doesn't feel particularly not necessarily true. I actually do believe it to be true, but it doesn't quite feel that the movie has maneuvered itself into the idea that the film is actually kind of getting towards at the back end. And that is because I think that the movie is much more interested and feeling like being provocative. And the thing about it is, I really like the provocation that's put on play here. And I love the kind of like turning of the screw in terms of like how each of these characters react to this. So in terms of like whether they feel like real characters or not, I can kind of see that the situation is kind of like creating more archetypes around the fact that these characters have to get through this in a week. However, I also really enjoyed seeing like the basic setup of this is how this person's going to react, and that's going to be by a magnitude of 3 to this information, and this is how this person's going to react, and it's by a magnitude of 10. And I quite liked seeing the mechanics of that all play out.
I think I would have liked that if, I don't know, the reactions.
Yeah. Well, we should do the thing. Or
we should talk about what this is about. It's really hard to talk about this movie.
This is my last point before we go into spoilers full blown. I think, you know me, we've talked about if it's just a simple archetype for a character, it's totally fine. And I think it is. I think because the promise of this movie's advertising for me was that it was going to be about the drama of a wedding, which again, the wedding is a moment, but it's not about the wedding. I was expecting a certain type of character piece, I think, and I don't think I got that character piece.
Right.
No, and I don't think it's supposed to be about simple character archetypes. I think that it's supposed to be about empathy, but I don't think it does a good job at cleaning that up. I think it kind of forgets itself. And then ultimately, she repeatedly throughout the film, he kind of does something awkward or messy. And she's like, let's start over. They meet and he kind of biffs it. And she's like, let's start over. And it's this a big, cute theatrical. They're a very charming front-facing couple. And I think that it's a lot of very cute tropes that make their relationship, to me, attractive, but not real. And it ends with him pretty much having done what I would say is the worst thing that he's ever done. And she says, let's start over. And I was like, Zendaya, Emma, you gotta move to Philadelphia, girl. I was really annoyed because he ultimately destroys everything and she forgives him in a way that it feels so we're gonna be fine, we're gonna start over. And maybe I'm misreading that, but I don't know. I did think the best line in the movie comes from that scene where she's like, what happened to your face? Because he's all beat up. And he says, he makes up a story, on the spot. He's like, oh, I saved a woman.
Saved a baby.
Yeah, baby. Someone was trying to steal her baby. And it's this silly story. They're being cute. They're so cute. The whole movie is them being cute. And she says, that was really brave of you. And I was like, he's been doing not brave things for the past hour and a half. It's crazy right now that that's the cute line. And she didn't say it with there was no, I don't know. I was like, is this you acknowledging that he has been a total coward? Is that all we're going to get? And then they just kind of keep up the charade of do you go here? Oh, I come here all the time. And I was like, I don't think this sticks the landing. I don't think it sticks the landing over the reality of a couple.
We're deep into spoilers at this point because we're discussing the end of the movie. So we can sort of let the gate off of that entirely.
Hit pause and go see the movie and then come back and listen to the podcast because I can't not talk about it.
Yeah. But to that end, I think going back to the beginning of the film where essentially there is the first meet cute where he sees her at a coffee shop. He rushes over to kind of identify what book she's actually reading. Googles the Goodreads review for it and then sort of tries to initiate a conversation on a book that he hasn't read. Apparently the book's not real, by the way. It's called The Damage. And because first thing I did was
I love that you looked that up.
Yeah, I was like, what is the book? Because I was like, I'm interested to see what it was. But to that end, I kind of found that one of the lingering issues that the movie might have for a lot of people is that you're not even sure why these two people are together because they seem so mismatched, even in right from the get-go. And there's a moment where she says, I think he's my first love at the age of 30. And there's a moment where he says, I'm so in love with you. It kind of scares me a lot. He says it to a deaf ear. And I'm not sure I entirely buy it in between these two in the movie.
Yeah, it's interesting because what is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in this movie is, I think, Robert Pattinson and Zendaya's actual chemistry and ability to act. But the story structure and the way it is presented to us, I think, is so not conducive to making you believe that these people are actually in love. And it's a weird dichotomy of those two elements where it lands the relationship for me in a solid 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
And even though it's from vastly different swings of that pendulum,
I think the thing is that the question I sort of was asking at the back of my head, but the movie does barrel past this, is the leap from them meeting, which is sort of fraught with like a kind of interesting deception, and then he's kind of doing this sort of like foppish Hugh Grant sort of thing to them, like to the next part of the movie, them being, like having gone through the entire courtship, to agreeing to get married, to planning the wedding, seemed like a little bit of like, I'm not on board with these two just quite yet, but I'm sure we'll get there. And then I think for me, now we'll talk specifically about the spoiler here, is where the movie really gets interesting for me. And this has actually been very divisive online as well. There's been a lot of think pieces writing about the idea at the center of this movie, and particularly the casting of certain actors within the context of what this story is trying to do. Mm-hmm. I think the provocation that is at the center of the movie that Zendaya has to play, which is filled with like all this sort of interesting gray areas and kind of played for absurdist comedy, really, really works for me. And I was then interested in going, okay, this squirmy guy, Robert Pattinson's character, Charlie, who kind of has like initiated this entire relationship based off of some form of deception, is now going to have to negotiate this thing, which is pretty unnerving and like involves a lot of moral gray area. And I think seeing how all of these characters react to that moral gray area is really fascinating, particularly around seeing how these two then as a couple then start making decisions, and particularly around the DJ, about their moral judgments of other people. And yeah. I think all of that stuff I was just 100% in the movie. So we should talk about what the thing is. Yeah. What is the thing?
So she planned a school shooting.
Well, to back it up, they're sitting at a dinner table and they're being asked, what is the worst thing that you've done?
Yes.
And
sorry, I jumped right to the worst.
Have you guys done this, by the way? What is the worst thing you've done with each other?
No.
Would you?
No.
Not on this podcast, but would you?
So I'm going to say no, but
let's all go around and say and then release it to the public.
Here's why. And I think
some real American psychos here.
I think my sort of final thoughts about this movie will actually tie into the reason why I wouldn't want to do that.
Right.
But we'll get there. Okay. We'll get there.
So they go around a table. Alana Haim kind of like initiates this with her partner. Basically to kind of goad him into telling the story of how he hid behind a dog. Which is, this is that sort of like asking, at a job interview, what's your worst quality kind of thing. Like, it's like, it's bad, but it's not that bad.
Well, his is not.
Mamadou Athie plays the character of Mike, who tells the story.
And these are engineered for us to immediately judge these characters because his is like, I don't know, I didn't do the right thing once. Whoopsie.
And then Alana Haim's, Rachel's.
Hers is evil. It's
Alana
evil.
Haim's character.
Something that really, in fact, well, I can get around a lot of the things that I have trouble with in the movie, and like maybe even could argue with myself about how like maybe there is more depth in some ways. Not Alana Haim's Rachel.
Yeah.
They specifically were like, we need a real C-word character with no emotional reasoning behind her.
Yeah.
She's so villainous and ridiculous that I was like, I can't get behind that person.
But also it's funny.
I enjoyed squirming at her.
It was but she's just designed for squirm. And I was like, this is an irrational.
But truly, I've met
people like this.
I've met people like this. And I will say, people that will turn anything to be about them. And she represents this, like, she's trying to take essentially the drama and make it about her or her feelings. And I love the interaction when we get to Emma saying her piece about when she was in middle school or something like that, she went through and planned and started to try to train with a gun to do a school shooting. And then she eventually decided that it wasn't worth it for various reasons we'll talk about in a bit. Which is also,
I feel bad laughing about it, but I think it's
that's kind of how it's kind of how it's played.
Well, I think that's because we're hearing Robert Pattinson's perspective of it in her words, but then I think that the important part, and again, I'll attest to the director here, I think this was really well done, was the flashbacks and actually seeing her go through this process of being like, oh, there was another school shooting, and then ending up kind of in this place where she's like talking with people.
Well, it's played for jokes at first, then it goes backwards to show that.
To me, Emma's journey as a young person it felt real and impactful.
Yeah.
And I think it needed to. And the film did this, and I was glad it did.
But my point with the Rachel character and why I think she's incredibly effective and actually maybe one of the more realistic characters in this is she's taking a moment of obvious turmoil and heartache and confusion and doubt of these other characters and making it about her. She even goes to the point where because the whole thing, she's like, my cousin was in a wheelchair because of a school shooting.
Yeah.
And then eventually you sort of learn between like, are you close? And she goes, she's family.
Yeah.
Which is the thing you say when you're not close to someone. And like she's played throughout it as like, essentially off screen. It feels as though the Rachel character is using her cousin as a prop to be mad.
Yeah.
And that is something that is an interesting dynamic amongst all of the other dynamics.
I think, okay, I didn't think it was interesting. I thought it was
I thought it was
just sort of like, we need more attention in the movie. Let's make Rachel the biggest bitch on earth.
I think it was
I've seen the memes this week saying that this is she's the true villain of the movie.
Yeah.
Which I think is fun. I didn't feel that way. I think the way in which both this particular topic, and this is the second time this year in a movie where school shootings have been played for absurdist laughs, the other in Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, like kind of goes to show how absurdly ubiquitous the idea is and also how ubiquitously American the idea is, which is why I think having Robert Pattinson be British in this scenario really is a clever tactic here. Because, even at some points he's kind of like, well, isn't this just kind of a really American thing?
Yeah, this is a really American thing. I thought it was cute.
Yeah. And so the
cute and awful.
Yeah. But also
cute for Robert Pattinson to say it because again, he's really cute in this movie.
But also like an observantly wry thing about, the fact that school shootings are perpetrated mostly in the United States. That there is a sort of epidemic of them here.
And that no one does anything about them.
And then to the point they become commonplace. And, like even that becomes a rationale that he applies to why Emma might have fantasized about it, because he was like, well, given that there's so many of them, I can see why impressionable young teenager who's having difficulty might enjoy, might fantasize about this. Mm-hmm. He's kind of like trying to figure out like how to rationalize this thing that he's heard, which he clearly feels a little uncomfortable with.
Yeah, and that scene is kind of played where he's defending her and he kind of starts to make things up. He's kind of like, we talked all about it and actually like she said this and it's better. And you can tell that he's kind of lying as he's saying this to them because he's not comfortable.
Yeah. And just to also put this out there as well is that this is produced by Lars Knudsen and Ari Aster, who obviously have sort of similar sensibilities of this kind of story as well. So I think that kind of like very sort of prodding of a social button is something that I could see why they were interested in this particular material. But I think the divisive thing that has popped up on the internet this week that I hadn't really considered, but I do agree with, is that in particular in the United States and I guess the sort of conversations around school shootings, it generally involve young men, particularly Caucasian men. Mm-hmm. And so to cast an African-American woman in that role requires a degree of delicacy and it requires a degree of sort of like thoughtfulness about it, which the movie doesn't have. It steamrolls past that idea very, very quickly.
I think the only delicateness of it is the fact that Zendaya is a phenomenal actress and she's bringing as much of that delicacy to it as she possibly can, but the movie is not doing her any favors.
The actress who plays her when she's younger, whose name I don't have in front of me right now, I think
Jordan Currit?
Yeah, I think does a really phenomenal job of it because the way she plays it and the way the story kind of plays it for as well is that she's an impressionable teenager. She is, sort of directly says she's interested in the aesthetics of it all, which is very much a teenager sort of thing.
All of it was very realistic, young teen and going through things alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of aesthetically. You know?
And also like then the sort of the symbols of a school shooting are played for absurdist laughs here, like her trying to make the recording, images of her as she's trying to learn how to shoot with the gun and that sort of thing. They become aesthetic choices that are, that I think are designed to be uncomfortable for the audience. And I actually found they were like really working for me in that respect. I like this sort of like squirmy humor. I like this like uncomfortableness that I could sort of sense in the audience when certain jokes were being made.
What do you think? I was curious about this because I don't even have the answer for this because I get why they were done and it makes total sense to me. But like, or maybe, what do you think the goal of making the audience squirm in that way is? Is it to like, because I think a lot of people's opinions on whether or not this works for them, present company very much included, kind of might sort of land on that reasoning of like what we think, like why this particular, like, do we think, I don't have the full answer to this. Yeah. This is sort of just me positing.
Yeah.
Why do we think that this story is about someone who is thinking about doing a school shooting?
I would argue that it's not.
Let me. Sorry, I don't want to get derailed. Maybe I said it poorly. Why do we think this movie is about coming to terms with a person who was contemplating a school shooting? Why I'm saying like the drama. Yeah. Why is a school shooting the drama? And I think it is, for if I could just guess a couple, it could be because it is a very quintessentially American thing, and it could be calling out the flippancy in which that our current society doesn't truly give a shit that these happen nearly every fucking day. But then like I'm like, well, then should it be flippant? Are we adding to the commonplaceness of it? Are we taking away the importance and the gravity and the horror of these things by making fun of it, or like sort of like being able to poke jokes at it? Maybe. Then there's the flip side of this argument. That's like a lot of ways people process this sort of stuff is through humor, is through darkness. Also, to varying degrees, human beings have intrusive thoughts. And there's a different scale of what this character does or plans or thinks about or whatever based on what any person would have. But like there is it's not even a thing that says anything about your mental state. It's like human beings just don't obviously have control over everything they're thinking about, right? Like, right. So there's like, is it trying to essentially speak to that angle of it? Is it like the jokes around it intrinsically? I do think they land very well. Specifically, when they're at the photographers.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and they're doing, first we're going to shoot your mom, then we're going to shoot your mom, then we're, it's very funny, but like, well, and then I'm curious because I've never, and nor do I hope to be, or anyone that is listening or anything like that, but like, I've never been in an active school shooter situation. Yeah. I had to posit that because there was one time I was, it's a different thing. Mm-hmm. The way that someone who has experienced that, how would they feel about this? And I know that there are certain activist groups that are upset about this movie and think that there should be a warning in the front.
Yeah.
I totally get that as well. So like, I guess what do we think out of, maybe I haven't even thought of the right one, but like, why do we think that this is the topic that this movie is about a character coming to terms with?
I think that's an interesting question. I think very specifically, a European filmmaker working in the United States might use this as an interesting provocation in terms of like, okay, what is the button I can really push here?
Yeah.
And I'm curious how you then felt about like, Good Luck, Have and Don't Die. The fact that they use school shootings there for comedy and it becomes like this tragic part of the story.
Yep.
Also Matthew Johnson, who we just did a film, Nirvana the Band, the movie, his first film, The Dirties, is about like a comedic take on a school shooting. Yep. And this is obviously very different to when Gus Van Sant did Elephant or, movies or, Bowling for Columbine came out when we were very much in the horror. But it's also the same reason why, I really respond to films like Four Lions, I think it's Chris Smith who directed that, which is a comedy about terrorists in London trying to, create a terrorist event. And it's a comedy from their point of view, kind of like The Office. And so I guess my response to that question of like, why this is I don't tend to sort of say why, or don't tend to ask that question, why this? I tend more to ask the question of like, was it effective? And for me, the fact that it was so squirmy was the effectiveness of it. You know,
I think something like that, and that makes sense. I think I'm looking for something a little bit for myself.
Yeah,
I'm looking for something a little bit deeper to the why, because there's tons of stuff that could be squirmy and could make you have this reaction that isn't this. So like, I want to believe that there is a larger reason why picking this was the
but I think that part of the problem might just be that it's a style choice and it's not a deeper reason. But again, it was fun, but I don't know that it was deeper.
But I also think what's rich in the way that it's being used here is that there's moral gray ground here, which is that she didn't do it. She talked about doing it. She thought about doing it.
She grew as a person and got past it.
And she grew, and then she eventually became an anti-gun activist because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a sort of, you know, like the question we asked on our Art versus Artist episode, where we talked about Fritz Haber, I think it was, the guy who was responsible for developing mustard gas in World War II, but also developed like nitrogen extraction from the air, which helped basically feed 1 billion people on the planet and sustain life as we know it today. What do we think about that, you know, moral gray area of this person? And I think, to me, the sort of school shooting side of it is the way it's being told and navigated through here with Emma's character, who and in comparison to Alana Haim's character, who actually did something awful, versus someone who didn't do something awful. And like in my brain, that also plays a little bit like the sort of moral quandary of Minority Report, which is like, we're going to predict people can do horrible things, and therefore that is an indication of what they've done. You know, like, and I think all of that stuff is really fascinating. And the dilemma there is for this couple who are about to get married is this idea that existed in her head as a thought, even an actionable thought, does that in the case of, you know, someone getting married, be an indicator of what they might be like 20, 30 years from now?
Well, that's his fear. That's his fear. Spiral. That's his problem,
which
is the problem.
I think that's a fair fear.
But you know what's interesting?
Yeah.
It's funny you put it that way of like, oh, could this be a problem 20 years down the line? That actually never comes up. Like the timeline of like, you kind of infer that he's worried about her mental health, and you infer that like, oh, because they're getting married, then they're linked together. Well, that makes sense. But
he thinks she's an undercover villain, you know?
Well, no, he thinks she might be unstable. But I think this is another sort of mark on the movie is because we're seeing it from his perspective, but it doesn't show, like, it's just his spiral, and it doesn't like, he doesn't quite.
Well, there's the for example, the sequences. Often, I think there was a really interesting thing that again comes to the editing of the film. They will intercut Zendaya being at the being there in the past, and then there was that sequence where they're walking through whatever park in Cambridge, and he's now holding hands of the younger actress, and like having this conversation, which is like, am I marrying? Which person am I marrying? Like, which is the individual? And like, is it this one or is it this one? And are they the same? Have they changed? Do I know and understand what this is? And I think to me, like when I was getting married for the first time, my situation is very different. Those were very prominent conjured memories, you know, like I do remember going, because I got married when I was 25.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm 25 and this is the person I'm now picking to be with forever. And, you know, like, do I even know, you know, like exactly what this is? And, you know, the reason I kind of thought this might be an interesting exercise for you guys is like, you know, like that there is an anxiety to like, oh, can I live with all of this? You know, and that in a way, that's what marriage is like, you have to be able to like accept that no one is perfect. Everyone is flawed. And people are sometimes really flawed, and myself being absolutely no exception. And like, what are the compromises I'm willing to make? What are the compromises I'm not willing to make? And also the thing that I remember about the process of when like you're finalizing for a marriage is that, especially a wedding, is that there is like a sort of large statement being made as a declaration to all your friends, to your family, that costs a lot of money. It's an investment. And so,
what are you talking about?
Yeah, so it's so cheap and affordable.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, like all that sort of fear and anxiety kind of plays out in that process as well. And like, you know, it's in my situation, I'm sure in your situation as well, it'll kind of work its way through. but like those are real anxieties that happen when a couple is getting married. And I think I again really enjoyed this sort of like quite fertile kind of ground, like particularly around a school shooting and particularly around this idea that she was thinking of doing a school shooting. And I was like, that is fascinating because I don't know how I would react in that scenario. And I don't know how I would be, like a week away from being married to this person. I don't know how I would be like, this is like really new information here that I didn't know about. And I don't know how, like, I don't know how I feel about it. Like you now look different to me in a way that I didn't think was possible.
So you'd go full Robert Pattinson is what you were saying.
I'm saying it's reasonable. I didn't find Robert Pattinson spiraling unreasonable.
In my opinion, he's the villain of this movie.
And then he, of course, does something towards the end of the movie.
The other person is a vehicle for drama.
Yeah.
He is the drama.
Yeah.
And it literally, in fact, he says, "Oh, she's always," when she pantses him, he says, "Oh, she's always trying to take the piss out of my drama or whatever." I believe he says, "Take the piss out," very English. And he says it a few times, and then he causes all of the problems, including for some reason that I'm kind of unclear on, kissing his coworker in a moment of extreme emotion.
Yeah.
Something I kind of wished would. I don't know. I try sometimes to think if I don't like something, if I have a problem, I try to be like, what would I change? What would I do differently? Yeah. Because if I don't have an answer, maybe it's that I don't understand the material. And I had a couple thoughts of like smaller ideas that might have been taken the movie into put a movie back on the rails for me.
Yeah.
And I think one of them was in the case where she brings his coworker in at the wedding and is like, I just need to know what's going on. Everyone's talking about me. And then she says, she outs them as having kissed, which is a very like, it's the crescendo of ridiculous drama.
Also, it's like the worst wedding moment that could possibly happen.
I thought he was going to throw her under the bus. I thought he was going to be like, well, Emma planned a school shooting.
Right.
And I think I would have been like, oh, here we go. Because then it's that he's using it. It still solidly keeps him as the villain of the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not my problem. I was happy for him to be the villain. But I thought, in this movie about empathy and, sometimes about empathy and choosing to understand someone or trying to understand someone, him doing the violent opposite of that might have been a really interesting way to take it.
Yeah. And I think
would that fix it? I don't know.
No, but I think then that his infidelity in that moment is the sort of like actionable equivalent of his feeling of betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like like he needs to do something that is morally reprehensible in order for the film to kind of like balance this equation.
Is that what? Yeah. Okay. I would like for one of you to explain to me why he kisses.
Yeah, I didn't get it.
And I'm happy to have it be something that I don't understand. No. But right now I feel a little like, what the hell was that?
I didn't understand it when it happened because there was never like, you get that he's having like a mental break.
Yeah.
But that also didn't make any sense based on his character, or like it felt so like, oh, well, this needs to happen because the story needs it to happen. Right. And I was like, cool. Yeah. You've made it so now I'm not rooting for them. Right. Like, and like, which I was kind of hoping would be sort of the end of the movie that they don't reconcile. But even though it is left a bit nebulous, it really isn't, because their whole thing is like, let's start over. And so like you kind of know based on context clues from the rest of the fucking movie that they are going to be together. And I was like, this is not the same thing. There's no, the concept of evening scales is
evening scales from like a point of not like, from a point of view of like, how does the movie balance its narrative?
Well, I think it doesn't. I think that's the thing. Right. I think it tries to, and it thinks it's doing it, and it absolutely does not. Again, I want to make it clear. I did like this movie. Yeah. I just have a lot of problems with this movie. I
think I could say the same thing.
Yeah, and like that's why I kept going back to it feels sloppy to me, and I go back to that's actually a feature, not a bug, because people are sloppy. And this is a look at people.
Well, a quick shout out to Haley Gates, who plays the coworker, because when they start to like make out, she so quickly is like, all right, we're going to fuck. And then when he has, comes around and pulls himself away from her, her face is so funny. She's just, her full mental brain space is, typical. Like she's just so annoyed in that moment. It's great. It's a really great.
She does a really
well, I actually, because I really like the conversation that they've had right before, which is that he asked her, "What's the worst thing you've done?" And she said, "I cheated on my partner, who was a really good person."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Well, so do you like really bad people then?" And she goes, "I don't know. The sex was better." Like kind of thing. And I think it leads to her, like her reasoning for that scenario. I thought the fact that he couldn't get her dress open and she just immediately bends over and turns around, I was like, this movie is really just going for the fences right now in terms of like how people are reacting to this scenario. And then it stops, like immediately. And he's like, and they're having this moment of like having to like walk, back away from the scenario. I thought was actually really, really effective. And again, I still enjoyed the squirminess of all of this.
The squirminess is fun.
The squirminess is fun, but this is the thing. At that moment, I was like, well, I'm not rooting for this anymore. So the squirminess didn't have it lost effectiveness by the end.
So it's interesting. I guess I've found, for me as a person, I tend to gravitate towards things that are going to make me uncomfortable, right? Like, we talked about the movie Sarat, which was on my number 2 of the list, a movie that I didn't actually like really enjoy the experience of, but like the more, there's no part of me that would want to change what that experience was because I would like want to see what the experience was on its terms. And so I think for me as a person, I tend to enjoy it. Like where a movie loses me is when I 100% don't believe what is happening is anything other than a writer's contrivance.
Right. And I'm saying that moment is something that's exactly what I feel this moment is.
I found that I was on board enough to kind of get through that. I think for me, the writer's contrivance of this movie is the idea that their relationship is somewhat salvageable by the end of this. Like
that's the second one.
So that's to me, I'm like, they're divorced. Like there's no way this marriage makes it because it's built on a series of lies and Zendaya forgiving horrible behavior.
Yeah, and I do agree that I think that is a point at which the movie may not have earned its stripes, so to speak, in terms of that. And like, you think about like, again, Paul Thomas Anderson's film, Punch Drunk Love. That is a movie where you get to the end of it and go, these two people are nuts and it's crazy. But they have something together, and I believe it, and I'm going to go for it at the end. Even there, like The Phantom Thread. Like this is a movie where it's like the poisonous handbook.
These people are nuts and they're crazy, but I guess this is their kink.
But this is their thing.
Yeah,
and I think the thing here is that in order to get to that ending, you have to believe with all possibility that this is a couple that truly believes in each other. And I'm not 100% on that. So I do agree with you that like perhaps a more bittersweet ending or perhaps a more sort of like
I think it tries to have its cake and eat it too. Like if it either had to, in my eyes, to make it function as the message, as any message, doesn't even matter which message. It either has to have the infidelity with Robert Pattinson's Charlie character happen, and then they don't end up together, or change that moment of something else bad that he does that isn't infidelity directly hurting his actual relationship, and then they can end up together.
Like throw Zendaya under the bus for thinking about a school.
I can buy all of that. But I think the only thing I'm sort of like really positing here is that ending aside, I really enjoyed how much of a kind of like, in a sort of Ari Aster way, like thinking about Midsommar and Hereditary and Eddington even though he was a producer on this film, that provocation is like, how much can we push this audience? And I think the school shooting thing in terms of like its moral gray areas are really, really good. And I really, really like it.
I think the school shooting element of this and the button pushing that it does for whatever reason, I still am not entirely sure if it does, is essentially, I think that it sticks the landing for me on that end.
Yeah.
But because this is a relationship drama, I think I feel like it just doesn't stick that at all. Like I think that the squirminess of it, of the titular invasive thought and or plan that does not come to fruition works.
Yeah.
I think the Charlie character and by that nature, their relationship doesn't.
I didn't feel like pushed or provoked by this movie.
Yeah.
The squirming, yes, but it just in like the way you watch It's Always Sunny or Arrested Development, and you're like, oh God, what are you doing? That humor of turmoil is very effective. But I think that's why it's frustrating to me, and maybe this is why you felt like a little more on board with this movie and I didn't. Her saying, I planned a school shooting, I didn't do it because of X, Y, and Z. And then actually I joined this thing. And also I was 15 and I was wearing eyeliner and my computer didn't work and everything was bad because I was 15. I don't remember if she was actually 15.
Yeah.
To me, her journey made a lot of sense. So I was like, yeah, so she's not a bad person. And in fact, going back to the DJ, they see their DJ allegedly doing heroin on the street.
Yeah.
And everybody else is like, oh, you should fire her. And she's like, no, I don't think we should fire her. And I was like, so this is a person that's like kind of more understanding, more patient.
No.
But then she fires her. So I kind of have to throw that comment out the window because later in the movie, Zendaya is just so fun to say.
Yeah.
Is the person that fires her. I went back and forth on whether or not I was going to talk about that at all to this.
I think it's critical to understanding the film.
To me, her being like, let's not fire someone for one mistake. I was like, that's an archetype of her. But then later she fires her and they get in a shouting fight. And I was like, all right, well, never mind, I guess.
Because in some ways the DJ thing is, again, meant to be a sort of interesting parallel that is happening to these characters, which is like, how much are they willing to like accept in terms of like this person? And question in my mind is like, do people smoke heroin? Is that how that works on would you even see that?
Yeah, maybe you don't walk a dog around our neighborhood, but you've seen a series of those tools. I
live around the corner from you.
I know, but I've spent a lot of time on
and we've never once invited you here to do heroin.
Sidewalk.
Yeah, I know. What is how many times are you guys out there doing heroin? Who's your heroin guy? Anyway,
good point.
Who's your heroin DJ?
Yeah, the second DJ to show up is a real that guy's a comedy writer. He did Everybody's Live with John Mulaney. It took me until today to remember where he was.
Yeah.
So I don't know. To me, I was like, okay, well, like she went through this arc, so she is not the drama because she was like, yeah, I went through a really hard time. Here's the justification. Here's how I went through it. Here's what happened at the end, and now I'm this person who decidedly has not done an extremely violent act, and everyone else can't handle it.
Right. I guess I think that like the fact, so in some ways there's more to that story of like, I was thinking about doing a school shooting by the fact that she was out in the yards practicing with a gun. And the reason she's deaf is because she was firing this gun into a tree. And then, like, we don't know if this is Robert Pattinson's, Charlie's kind of impression of what she was doing or whether this is her remembering it. But the fact that she recorded videos and that, she was like, this is the first person I'm going to kill kind of thing. It was more than I had this sort of like fleeting thought.
You don't think she was just emotionally processing in a way that was intense? You think she was really...
I think the movie, again, there's gray area in terms of like what actually happened in that narrative.
Like that flashback where she points a gun at a dog. Because to me, I was like, that's kind of a Zendaya brain, Emma brain moment.
Yeah.
Did she kill that dog?
It's possible. And I think the sort of idea that this person could have like walked all the way up to the ledge of this idea, including like the actual planning of it, the sort of meticulous nature required, all that sort of stuff, which is horrific, and requires a kind of like, I guess, a lack of social understanding of death and murder and chaos and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And that to me is like, like, again, I'm from Robert Pattinson's or Charlie's point of view, be like, that is a degree of, difficulty that I find, like, for example, by comparison, Alana Haim's character, with the thing that she did where she locked up that person
and then
didn't reveal.
Yeah.
I can, in my brain, say that's a kid who just got caught doing something horrible and doesn't want to admit, own up to it. and it ends up, spiraling into like a terrible thing.
I can't get up behind that.
Yeah,
I
to
think
me,
that's a
specific
that's
choice.
a purely
to make
sociopathic
us,
thing.
To make us
yeah.
actively dislike that person immediately.
I saw it I guess I saw it like she was. How old did she say she was in that story? She was like
she was in middle school or something like that.
Yeah.
But she's not like, oh, I know. It is the worst thing you've ever done. But she's like, and it just like never came back to me. And like, whoops, tee-hee. It's a little bit of a tee-hee
It's the
way
story
of telling
itself
the story,
and how she tells the story that makes you be like, oh, you're fucking insane.
Yeah, and the two guys' stories are like, I don't know, I'm just a klutz.
I mean,
like,
hang on. The other thing, the story that I was like coming back to in my head the whole time,
the cyberbullying
was like he was like, I remember, I cyberbullied a kid. And they were like, really? And it was like, yeah, it was really bad. They had to move and everything. And I was like,
and then that's pretty bad. They also play it for a joke. They're like, well, that might have just been moving anyway. It might have been circumstantial.
But knowing Robert Pattinson, sorry, I really try to do the names, but I'm so their faces are so familiar.
Yeah.
Knowing Charlie by the end, it's like, or are you just in denial? About something actually bad that you did.
What was the cyberbullying? Yeah. Like what did you say to this person? There's all these questions that come up. I think that's why I think that scene is so good. Like the actual writing of that scene and like the amount of time Carrot takes to like put together these pieces.
Yeah.
And that
they're being weird and overprivileged about like taking time, opening more bottles of wine. You see the staff be like, oh, for God's sake, we're not a bar. I thought that was an interesting choice to be like, you're all being a little shitty right now.
Yeah. And I think it's, it really plays into this sort of like morality play that these characters have, which is like, how bad are they? Mm-hmm. I think again for me, where the kind of metaphor and the sort of the interplay between the process of marriage and weddings and all that sort of stuff comes into play is that all that anxiety comes up, is kind of there's an opportunity for that anxiety to bubble up into a concentrated form around this event.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the movie actually really, really works for me. And I love the writing of that scene. I think it's like chef's kiss. And I can imagine when you read that for the first time on the page, you'd be like, holy shit, this movie's good.
Yeah.
And I, again, in the moment, I cared less about, I felt that the characters' chemistry in terms of like, this is the central couple of this like presumably somewhat engaged film about a romantic coupling. But I felt less interested in that because I was like, well, this thing at the center of it is so unusual and filled with like so many gray areas across all four characters that I was like, I'm interested here. I'm like, whatever you got, I'm here for it.
I want my conclusive thought about this, and sorry, we don't have to conclude, but I just keep circling to this.
Go for a bit. We can do final thoughts.
I don't mean to kick you guys out of the studio.
Yeah.
I'm thinking a lot about like how I don't want to judge the movie based on how I would judge relationships. Like this isn't this. Shahir didn't come over and be like, "You guys got to hear about the nightmare wedding that my friends are having." Like these are characters. This is a story being told. It is not just, oh no, this person should end up this way.
Yeah.
And I don't want to judge a film that way. This movie makes it hard not to do it. But I think what that leads me to is that the ending of this movie, I think maybe really liked it if the ending was them not getting together at the end, her not forgiving him for everything that he did and his attitude and his total mishandling of his partner, which she shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And him realizing that this is the worst thing he's ever done.
Yeah.
And that's the end for him, is that his worst thing is that it is not that he maybe cyberbullied someone. I don't know. I'm too cute. It was that he couldn't trust a partner and truly listen and be available in the ways that you need to when you're going to be a life partner.
Yeah.
I think that ending would have made me be like, this movie is good. Apart from Rachel, who I do think was underwritten as an enemy.
My final thought actually kind of comes, I'll try to circle all my things together, but I think actually through this conversation, I've nailed down why they chose school shootings as the thing a character thought about doing that another character can't get over, and then that having basically every other character do awful things based around that. I think they chose it because specifically this is an oversimplification of a very complex issue, but I don't really know how else to do it in a wrap-up segment. The solution that Emma comes to, there's a moment when after the other school shooting or the other shooting at a mall or something that sort of snaps her out of it and like delays her essentially, is they have assemblies in the gym and they're going around and the counselor's saying things and like looking at something, and one of her bullies actually is the person that she has to look at, and they hug. It shows, and I think what might be considered what the filmmakers are trying to say about this specific endemic or emblematic problem of the United States, and that is that when you are ostracized, when you are bullied, when you are alone, when you are not part of community, that is where this shit festers. American culture is very much like that. We are all individualists, and it is a hard, not everyone, but on the whole, I would say. And then the fact that she sort of finds community, and in that community starts doing sort of positive things on the opposite end of the spectrum of what she was planning, kind of just shows that. I think it makes her character very, very relatable as someone who was having, obviously making a bunch of mistakes as a child, and then sort of realizing through different ways that like community or family or friends or something, you can come back from being in that place. And I think that might be why it's okay that they chose this particular topic to be the drama that kicks off the real drama of the movie. So I think that might be for me why I'm okay with that, and why I'm okay with the squirming of it, because there is actually in Emma's story what I think the filmmakers are trying to say as not an end-all be-all solution for anything, but like a way to combat this epidemic of school shootings and violence in that way. The thing then that I think breaks the entire thing for me is the messiness in which the other characters don't. It's not believable every time in the ways that they react, and doesn't make for an interesting story or feeling squirmy or something like that in the chair. Yeah, it really does. But by the end, by the wedding, I'm not invested anymore, because the most realistic thing of the entire movie has already happened. And now it's just like, well, it feels like to me, the script needs this to happen to have it keep going. So we're going to keep going.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you say that, because in terms of like, you've actually kind of like in a way turned me on to the ending a little bit now, which is that she, in that moment of like accepting that bullying, like when the other school shooting happens, and then she makes a connection with the person that may have been bullying her, or that she, was having difficulty with or being ostracized for, kind of in a way gives her a sense of understanding of like why she instigates the reconciliation with Charlie at the end of the movie. She comes in and she says we should start over, because she's kind of in a way been through that. And
yeah, she's endlessly forgiving. Forgiving.
Exactly. And so it kind of like actually makes me kind of see that ending in a slightly different, in a more sort of direct through line for the story.
I can see that in a certain way or in a vacuum. There's just something in the way that it's presented that actually makes me not feel that at all.
I think the thing is that in some way the genre of film, the marketing around it and all that sort of stuff, plays better when you are really endeared to the idea that there is some genuine chemistry between these two people. That is like, I believe these two people should be together kind of thing. And that's therefore it works. And I'm still not there.
Yeah, I don't have that at all.
Yeah. But I still contend, like why I enjoyed the movie was that I love the squirminess of it all. I love the provocation of it all. I love the idea that like, an American audience that may not be, that may have wandered into what they thought was a Friday night Zendaya, Robert Pattinson kind of like meet cute romantic, film about weddings, is going to have to like contend with a story that's essentially about like the sort of contending ideas around a school shooting. And I really want to make this clear as well. Maybe we should put a disclaimer on this episode. I do think film is a place to explore these ideas in sort of both measured, irreverent, flippant, and kind of cautious ways. And movies, like that's why I enjoy movies. I also want to acknowledge that like there are certain topics, that I find extremely difficult that if a movie is flippant with, can be extremely difficult to watch, And again, Sarat is an example of that particular thing. Mm-hmm. But my feeling has always been I tend to like gravitate towards that kind of material because I like it when someone is trying to push something a little bit beyond, that the audience, think. I sort of like, I tend to equate it to this, which is that like sometimes the audience, myself included, doesn't know what we want until we're presented it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I get turned off by a film is like when a filmmaker is kind of like giving me what they think I want. And and I'm sort of like, I didn't really want to see a romantic comedy between Zendaya and Robert Pattinson where they're just kind of like foppishly falling around or whatever, but this thing that you put into the middle of it, which I had no idea about walking into, I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
I think we're fortunately past the era of like rom-coms that are just pillowy little dalliance.
You have not watched Netflix recently, have you?
Okay. Really good point, actually. All right.
There was a trailer for Me, You, and Tuscany at the beginning.
Me, Tuscany.
At the beginning of this. And I'm like, you know what?
Shit, you're right. We're rolling back everything I just said right now. We are right
breaking
there.
and entering, but as a meet cute.
It was that and then The Mummy.
Yeah. Here's, you know what? I will say this is a very interesting thing. The trailers in front of this movie had no fucking idea what to be. It was such and I'm not mad at it. Yeah. I'm saying, because I know you don't watch them, but it was every genre ever because no one knows what to classify the drama as.
Coming back to the mark, we sort of often have fun with the marketing of a movie on this podcast. I think the thing here is that like, if I was on the marketing team for this movie, I would be like, fuck, I need a minute to
I'm going to send you the Vogue post where they did the wedding announcement because it's all photography and it's really good and it lays a sense of anxiety. I think you have to be photos.
As the marketing team for this film, you have to be really creative.
Yeah, you do.
And have to like really think, I'm going to send people to the movie theaters thinking that this is a movie about a wedding when it's a movie about a school shooting.
It's not a movie about a school
shooting.
Whether they like it or not, the people who are going to like really dislike this movie are going to be like, that was a movie that's talking about a school shooting when I thought what I was coming in for was a movie about like, a wedding.
They can choose to be a Rachel about it.
And I'm saying like those two genres or those two topics don't often collide.
Yeah. No.
So I to hats off to the marketing team to do that.
1,000%.
Coming back to that topic of the editor of the film, Christopher Borgli himself and Joshua Raymond Lee just do such a fantastic job of like, really
fully agreed.
And like it's structured because of great direction as well. Like, there are really sharp, precise moments that are being like executed really well here. This reminded me of like one of the hardest exercises I ever did as an editor. And we don't talk a lot about like what narrative editing is, but it is a very delicate craft. But like really using time repeating itself over and over again to like create this mood, anxiety feeling. Again, go back and watch Paul Thomas Anderson's Punch Drunk Love to see the way that film is edited together. So superbly done. Christopher Borgli, Dream Scenario really landed for me in terms of a movie that kind of like managed to push a button that I didn't think we were like sort of thinking about, which was like both celebrity culture and cancellation, and the way people can get canceled in a way that I thought was really thought-provoking and interesting. And I think he does it again here. I'm kind of all in on this guy at this point, I really, really love this. I thought this was like top tier. Like I was in on this from like, frame one.
Well, I don't have the grace of Zendaya, so I don't forgive you.
Nice. I think I like this movie because I don't love this movie.
Yeah. This is not a waste of time.
Yeah.
There are things, there is media that, in my opinion, is a waste
Super Mario
of
Brothers
time.
this week, didn't you?
No, I'm definitely not going to go. But that last Jurassic Park movie, waste of time.
Yeah, huge waste of time.
In fact, I'm mad at you if you went to see it. I'm just kidding. I'm not.
You guys saw it. I didn't see it.
Yeah, we saw it, and I'm still mad.
Hey, give people jobs.
Go see this movie. Talk about it with your friends. I have really enjoyed talking about it with you guys. I really like that Shahir and I are on total opposite ends about it because that is fun.
I love that Danny, again, I only associate Danny, who writes us in, as the person who got married on our show, even though like there's so much more to this person, and obviously I'm not minimizing that, but I love that like he and his wife watch this movie. She, I think her name is Chantel. She's been on the show on our top 10s as well. Like saw this movie and have been talking about it for a week. And I'm like, that's awesome.
I think I forgot
talking is great.
I forgot to tie it back my thought process to the What?
Sorry. Talking is great. It's such a stupid thing to say.
No, it's
not on
you're
this
not
show.
wrong. It would have solved a lot of problems in this movie. And I think one of the interesting things that I wanted to sort of close in on, because I know I mentioned it before, was the idea of why I'm not interested in the exercise of like, what's the worst thing you've ever done?
Mm.
And I think it's because what this movie does show, again, through, I think, my mid-show revelation of like why I think the subject matter of school shootings actually works for this particular element of this movie that, again, I don't think works entirely, is because people are not the same as they were when they were teenagers. They are not the same as they were when perhaps that they did a thing that they are truly ashamed of.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I think there are many other metrics in a relationship and sort of building trust that, like, and again, we'll even go back to, intrusive thoughts. Yeah, you might wonder a thing or something like that, but I don't think it's ever to the point where I would ever sort of want to know the thing that my partner thinks is that thing, because I already, at this point, Jamie.
Thank God, because mine's really bad.
Good. But no, truly, because I know who you are. I would hope that people in a marriage like know each other enough at the point where they are that it wouldn't actually matter.
One of my favorite lines in Scrubs, like the early seasons of Scrubs, was JD and Turk are talking about like what goes on in their heads, and like Carla comes along, who's Turk's wife, and she's like, I don't want to know what's in there. He goes, yeah, baby, you don't. Last time you were in there, you had no skin. And then like they just leave that and walk away. And I was like, and I don't know why that came to me as you were saying what you were saying.
I remember that.
But it was because it was like, there's this thing, which is that wedding, marriage, I've been married for 20 years, is that it is both like a compromise, and like you also like have to understand that the person that you are becoming a life partner with is going to see you at both your worst and your best.
Yeah.
And has to be okay with both of those.
Yeah.
And like, like
it's that real fake Marilyn Monroe quote.
Again, Rob, Charlie failed this test.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But Zendaya didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Emma was great and should have a better partner.
Yeah. And I think, like you were like, these two are getting divorced in a year. I wonder if Charlie changes. Because
the movie doesn't give us that, though.
No, it doesn't.
He nothing about him changed. From the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, he's the same guy, which is very frustrating.
Yeah, it's extremely frustrating.
See that. I thought he had really hit rock bottom by the end.
He did. He hit rock bottom, and he didn't change.
And he's only redeemed by the fact that she's willing to accept him back.
We see no change in him. We could pray and hope and whatever that he changes, but we see no change.
That's marriage, my friends.
Anyway, this has been the only podcast about the film The Drumma.
What is that?
Jamie, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Where can folks find you?
I have an Instagram, and it's JimJam Walsh, JimJam_Walsh, and sometimes I post. Mostly I don't, but I'm there.
You are there.
A little bit. I'm
That's
there.
where you are.
You're putting up illustrations again? I've been on and off Instagram like completely for the last couple of weeks.
He's had some drama with Instagram.
I think I've done some stories. Yeah. I'm thinking about making a separate Instagram for illustrations, just because I am trying to like kind of dig back into it.
Yeah.
And a website seems daunting.
Yeah.
And we're planning a wedding, so I don't have any time.
Don't got time for that.
Yeah.
We will. Shahir, when you are not making the wine tasters stay very much later than they agreed to stay for all of your drama, where can folks find you?
You can find me sipping the Merlot at my website, suvanova.com. That's SUVANOVA.com. Matt, when you are becoming the new announcer for Love Island, where can people find you?
You can find me at my website, Extra History and Extra Credits. I believe by the time this comes out, what the fuck's happening over there? We are releasing a wonderful Extra History. I think it will be out by the time this comes out, and if not, it will be a week later. It is on the story of the elephant that created the modern zoo. It's a weird story. It's a sad story. It's an important story. And I very much want people to check it out. It's already on Nebula right now. If you have that subscription, you can check out that and me on all those weird Nebula shows like Abolish Everything and The Getaway and I think that jet lag thing. Go check out all those things. Next week,
Super Mario Brothers?
Do you want to?
No, absolutely not. I really don't. My son went and saw it, and he had nothing to say about it.
I will see it eventually. I don't, but I just truly, based on what I've heard about it, I don't think there's anything to talk about, which is interesting because I think the first movie I had a lot to talk about.
There's no drama.
There's no drama.
No, there's a lot of stuff coming out, though. We will come back at you next week. Email us in onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com. Write us in with your thoughts on the drama. Tell us about your drama. Don't tell us about the worst thing you've done in your life.
Do not.
Please, under any circumstances.
Because we will read it on the internet.
And we have no client attorney privilege to offer you.
Not at all. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.